Today I am on the test server to show you guys the brand new weapon, the Suppressor, as well as an upcoming CPC map. I will cover all the stats and features of both of these new additions, and at the end I'm going to rate this weapon on both how good I think it will be and how good of an addition I think it is to the game. Alright, let's check out the stats of this weapon. It is a legendary heavy duty weapon, the Suppressor 10 energy variant. It does up to 8,500 damage per shot with 38 RPM. It has a magazine of 6 with a 6-second base reload. Its optimal range is up to 50 meters and its max range is up to 110. As you rank it up, you also gain projectile speed. Now, this is a radius based weapon. It's like a rifle, so this is a mid-range weapon, but it also has a nice 5-meter radius, which isn't a huge radius, but it's enough to get back damage in if you are able to get critical damage on your opponents. And finally, it applies a new status effect, so let's go check that out. It's called Damage Drain. It fires projectiles which apply the damage drain status effect on a hit, limiting the target's damage output by a set percentage. This percentage stacks on a mech with each successive hit up to 6 times. So basically, the first hit they'll do minus 15% damage, and then 5 hits after they'll do minus 5 for each hit, up to negative 40% damage. So this is a new status effect, and it introduces a new feature for status effects, which is stacking. As it stacks, you'll see a multiplier above the opponent's head, so you know how many stacks and therefore how much damage reduction they have. So that is an overview of the Suppressor. Now let's go jump into some battles on our brand new map and check this thing out. Alright, here we go. I have dual Suppressor 10 on Panther. We are also on the new map, which is called like BioGear Lab or something. I don't remember, but I'm going to be playing all the matches in this video on this map just so you guys can get a little bit of a feel for it, but we're mostly going to be focusing on the Suppressor. So, this weapon has 6 shots, as you can see. It's like, this weapon is going to be mostly like a mid-range type weapon. You can see it's kind of just like a rifle. It fires those like purple energy projectile things, whatever. So it's not like a close quarters weapon, and it loses damage, I think, after 50 meters. So you're going to want to be at, within 50 meters ideally, or just about there. Otherwise, you're going to start losing damage from the damage fall off. But this is a radius weapon. So the reason radius weapons are powerful is because you're able to prioritize back damage by aiming behind the enemy mechs. You can see here, and I'm doing increased crit damage. And you can, up to, of course, double your damage. If you hit all back damage shots, you would double your damage effectively, right? So that's the true strength of weapons like this. And then, obviously, this weapon also has the effect that it's applying to our enemy. So this effect introduces kind of like a new feature for effects, which is very interesting. So the effect has stacks. You can see it says ×3 right now. We start with ×1, and as we hit consecutive shots, we now to 4, 5, and then all the way up to 6, which is the max stack. And with each stack, like I said before, it's going to decrease the damage that particular enemy deals by 5%, and it's 15% for the first stack. So, and then with the implant, I believe it's another 10% on the first stack only. So with like full 6 stacks, you're going to do 15 plus 25 for the 5 secondary ones, basically, which is down minus 40% damage that the enemy can deal. So it's not like a total debuff. Like Parasite is minus 90, Vortex is minus 50 to you, right? They function a bit differently, where this one only applies to that particular enemy. Instead of being a buff to you being resistance, it's a debuff to the enemy. But it's functionally very similar to resistance, being Nomad, Vortex, and Parasite that we have in the game right now. This water right here, by the way, will kill you instantly. I've tried. I haven't tried with Deathwalker, though. I kind of want to try that, but let's jump down on these guys. Again, we're going to use our, radius here to hopefully hit both of them to the back, right? I got to get out of here from that guy, but we'll be able to get him. Thankfully, though, the damage reduction rather there is going to help us survive. It's interesting, though, because like, I'm thinking, like, right, Revoker is by far the highest damage in the game. Would this weapon, like, be able to help you out-brawl a Revoker, right? There's potential for, like, maybe even, this is kind of a wild shot, right? But what if you ran a 16 Revoker and a 6 Suppressor, right? So you can reduce the damage of the enemy and increase your own damage. Now, that's probably not worth it. Probably in the case of a Revoker, at least that is not worth it. But I feel like there's potential for that to genuinely be like a good strategy. I doubt it just because of the way this game works with the pilots, because you have to run the right type of pilot, and there's almost no way to build hybrid builds because of the way Plarium has designed pilots. They've made it even more restrictive now with they changed how the damage buff pilots give works now. It's like 70% instead of 30 and 40 like for the specialization like it used to be. But that's potential. You could also run it with a minigun or something, right? But this is really like a complete, really support-based weapon in the game, which is not something we've seen much before at all. Alright, so I was just saying that basically this weapon is kind of an interesting type of weapon, right? It is somewhat suppressive, right? I can't tell how good the damage is on it yet. Really, to see how good damage is on a new weapon, we basically just have to wait for the live server. We can compare like DPS and stuff, but we really just need to see it, you know, fighting against. Right, the competitors for a weapon like this, a mid-range weapon, are going to be like minigun, pod gun, things like that, right? Not the close-range weapons and not the snipers, and not like the guided, you know, camping weapons like a strike rocket, I mean, or like helix rack, whatever, all those type of things, right? This is a direct fire weapon, right, with the additional bonus of the supportive ability. Are you going to be able to out brawl revokers just because they have 40% less damage? No, but you can help your teammate out brawl revokers because the enemy revokers are dealing 40% less damage. I mean, that's a guaranteed win in a fight where you're on equal terms otherwise, right? It gives your teammates a guaranteed win, and for you, it gives you a little less like you know, less risk when peeking and stuff, right? When those bots with like the fully loaded Tetra rifle have it ready charged up, they're about to do 400,000, you can reduce it down to 200 or whatever, you know, whatever the case may be. It's going to help you survive longer because you're able to reduce the enemy damage coming back at you, right? So this is a supportive type weapon, which is pretty unique in the game and typically aren't all that good. They are used though. The ones that are like the best are things like pod gun, which has, you know, tracking and radius from 100 meters. It's a very powerful weapon, and that's used on those support type robots, or mechs really. Like Solus is a support mech, right? By itself, is it gonna, you know, be able to like take out a bunch of people like Eclipse or Surge would? No, but you know, it's going to be able to support its team by blinding the enemy mechs, and of course that is only applicable in PvP because bots aren't very affected by blind, of course. But this map also has like these cool little tunnels down here, like all these little ramps. It's a very interesting map. Kind of more like there's like a lower ring, but yeah, sorry. We have stuff like Hemlock, you know, Daze of them from far away. Salvor, of course, is a supportive mech. Support roles though in the game aren't very prominent right now, and the support weapons available again there aren't very many of them, and they aren't used very much, especially, you know, in stuff like non-competitive play. People are just going to run revokers because they wanted to get the kills for themselves. But strike rocket is definitely a support type weapon, I would say. It you know, locks on from up to like 130 meters with an implant, and then is going to do really solid damage to the enemies. Honestly, it's not like the craziest damage ever, but you know, the guided weapons like that, Helix previously, basically strike rocket is just an upgraded Helix. And then we also have stuff like minigun can kind of be a suppressive sort of support weapon, but it also just has really good damage. That's why it's one of the top weapons in the game right now, because it can fulfill that role while also having a lot of damage. So this is a support type weapon. Is the damage on it going to be good enough to be like running solo against an enemy player? I doubt it. But again, we're going to kind of have to wait and see until it gets on the live server. The test server is not an accurate representation of how powerful a weapon is, like, you know, damage-wise, right? It's just not really an accurate thing. Like, these are just all bots, right? We're not fighting players, which is really what matters. I mean, killing bots. If you really want to just farm bots, just use whatever, minigun, Eclipse, revokers, whatever. Just whatever works best against bots, right? These aren't going to be that. But are these actually viable against players? I think these are going to be a fairly solid weapon, and I think they're going to be a really fun choice for someone who wants to play support. I would love to see Salvors running this weapon, right? So they're able to fire, because you have a radius and you have so many different shots, and since the initial shot applies more of the damage debuff, right? Like than the secondary shots do. Now this guy is already down, what? 25% damage. That's a pretty significant difference compared to what he would be doing, and can definitely help keep your teammates alive, right? Which is, you know, the whole point of Salvor. So, you know, this is like, imagine a weapon that gave your teammates resistance. This is like that. It's a similar thing. Again, it's similar to the resistance-based abilities or the damage buff abilities, but it's another way for us to do that, where we damage decrease onto our opponents, rather. Sorry. There's no damage buff onto your teammates yet. Also, that's another potential weapon concept that could come someday. I'm sure it will, you know, someday in the future, right? But yeah, overall, I think this is a really cool weapon. It's got some interesting features. I love the stack, how the effect stacks. That's definitely something we can see potential in, like new effects or, you know, existing effects in the future. I think corrosion is like the obvious choice for that. Corrosion affects all of them. Whatever the Hornet one is, that one is weak. Then we have the burn effect, which is even worse, I'd say. And then we have the Redux one, which Redux's ability is mainly only good because you get the stasis. The DOT is just not significant enough. Basically, none of those effects do enough damage. But I mean, often in games, DOT effects especially are going to get like they get an increased like stack size as you continue firing. So I fire with Hornet once, I get 1 stack of DOT, then we get 2, 3, and that would really build up the DOT to the point where it's actually effective. And I think that I'm not actually certain exactly how DOT works against mods right now, but what it should do is it should be able to counter the mods, because it like bypasses something like Galvanic Hull, right? Galvanic Hull blocks, you know, increased damage, but I think it should be bypassing Galvanic Hull right now. I would assume it does, but I haven't actually tested the Hornet or anything DOT, because again, DOT is so irrelevant in the game right now. Nobody really cares about it. None of those weapons or that mech are particularly relevant or good, right? They can be fun and they're not unusable, but I think the stack like feature could really help some old effects that need like a buff to be, you know, more prominent in the game. The stacks could also be used for, you know, upcoming new effects. I imagine that's what it will be for. So if Plarium is listening, please Plarium, I think this is a good feature and you should utilize it in upcoming effects that come from mechs or weapons, right? Probably weapons, since you are trying to stack an effect on, but this effect, it starts out strong and then it gets weaker as you continue applying. Not that it's bad to continue applying with more stacks, but the initial stack is stronger than the other ones. With something like DOT, we'd start out weak, right, with 1 stack, where it's just going to do 1 stack of DOT, and then as we scale up, right, then it would get much and much stronger to the point where you're dealing a ton of extra damage. But it would need to be enough to be worth it, and again, something like a perk where it bypasses Galvanic Hull or even bypasses the mod shield, right, I feel like that would be a very valid reason to consider using a DOT weapon. And again, it would be probably something like a support weapon like this weapon, the Suppressor, is, but I think it would still be interesting and definitely a concept they should explore. Obviously it's not like some new feature they came up with, but it's definitely something I think is a valuable, kind of thing. You can see here, though, I've noticed that this weapon really struggles with the hitboxes of, like, the terrain around it. It often, like, is just going to hit, like, there. Like, I'm hitting, I don't even know what. Maybe it's just because I'm playing on this map a lot, and I'm not used to it, or, it has, like, different weird hitboxes, or maybe it's just the test server. The test server sometimes has some strange things going on, but radius weapons typically struggle a bit to get past, like, cover, especially things like, I feel like nades and cryos kind of struggle with that, but this weapon in particular, I've had a lot of trouble, like, actually trying to just hit my shots, which, of course, if I can't hit my shots, that's definitely going to be a problem. Ouch. Man, these bots are out to get me. I somehow survived a Revoker guy. Nice. But yeah, best combos for this weapon, right? Again, it's gonna be mechs that aren't gonna want to go into close range, so nothing like Surge or Nomad, right? Eclipse can be played as a mid-range mech, so Eclipse, if you want the best option for this weapon, if for whatever reason you really like this weapon or something, Eclipse is your best option. But if you want to pick something more interesting, again, stuff like Solus, I think, would be a really good choice. Mimicker could be interesting. The Hemlock or Solus. Solus is probably my #1 pick I would want to try. I might try that out on the live server even when this weapon comes out. Because, it's going to be, like, supporting your teammates, right? Especially if you're able to play with your friends, play with actual team, in a voice call or whatever. That's going to be a lot more fun when you're able to, especially sit on height, right? With radius weapons, you always want to sit on the high ground, because then you can just splash the radius down on the enemy, and it's a lot easier to get back damage because there's more area to aim for. There you go. Bam. No, he got me back. But yeah, you would definitely want to stay on height, so staying back, away from the Revokers, right? And the close quarters, whatever's going on, and, on height is going to be the ideal position for this weapon. So, overall, what do I think about this weapon? Is it a good addition to the game? How strong will it be, right? If I were to place this weapon on a tier list right now, which again, just note, this is a premature placing. The weapon isn't even released yet. I have never played it against a player, right? The damage numbers, I don't know, like, how powerful it is relative to other weapons. I would say that this is probably a B tier weapon. I imagine that's a pretty solid rating for it. I wouldn't put it in A or C. If anything, I'd drop it down more to C, but I think B tier is probably an accurate rank, or, tier for it, I guess, if you're putting it on a tier list. Out of 10, it's like a 6 out of 10, right? Pretty average, maybe a little better than some of the other, recent weapons. But overall, as an addition to the game, I think this is one of the best weapons, especially we've had recently. We have a lot of weapons come to the game, basically monthly. We're getting monthly additions, which I think is an oversaturation for the weapons, especially. I mean, even mechs now are getting pretty excessive how many we're getting, especially when they're like new mechs or new weapons that are just, feel like almost pointless additions. They aren't adding anything new, and they aren't something unique compared to anything that's already in the game. Like, why would I use the what is it called, the venom thing? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? I don't remember, but why would I use that weapon when there's like the pod gun, right? Why would I use Hellfire when there's Revoker? There's like, you know, the perk of Hellfire is to burn, but it just doesn't matter, right? Oracle was a pretty good addition, right? It brought a new effect to the game, but at the end of the day, it's just another machine gun type thing, right? You saw there, guys, you just saw how I was missing those shots. That's what I was talking about with the hitboxes. I don't know what's going on there. It's very scuffed on here, at least on, I don't know if it's the map or the test server, but yeah, you know, the Oracle, the new effect was nice, but overall it's just another machine gun, and it's not better than minigun, so why would I run it, right? Only for the effect. Is the effect particularly strong? No. Like, sighting people through walls in Mech Arena isn't a huge deal. This is one of the games where, like, you can really see everything through the wall almost all the time, right? It's not like Valorant or something where, like, a scan through the walls is super powerful. Not that the effect is bad. I'm glad they made it infinite duration, but overall, it's not, like, the strongest effect ever or anything like that. But I think that the best part of this edition is that it brought a new mechanic, or I guess effect, to the game. It's not like a super unique mechanic, you know, reducing your enemy's damage isn't something crazy, but I think the weapon itself, like the damage, the functioning, like how it's like, I guess, an assault rifle kind of thing, it's not super unique again, but the stacks is my favorite part of this weapon. I think it's a great addition, and again, I really hope that Plarium actually utilizes it and expands on it, because I think it has some great potential, and it would really allow for some more unique effects where you want to build them up over time, and if you do, you're going to be rewarded for building them up. In this case, with this weapon, it's kind of, you're rewarded initially, and then you get a little bit more benefit as you continue building it up, which is fine. I mean, that's a fine, you know, model for it as well. But I guess either way works, but you know, I just want to see them utilize this more and not just waste the potential. Overall, my ranking for this weapon is a 6 out of 10 in strength. Probably not going to be that great, but not terrible either. And I think that as an addition to the game, it is a 7 out of 10, right? It is a good addition. It's a unique weapon with a unique mechanic of the stacking of the effect. It's a new effect that I think is relevant and something that we should continue exploring. And yeah, I think this is a really good addition. I'm excited to use it on the live server, and it's not something boring and, you know, completely cluttering the space, especially for weapons, but mechs too. I think Plarium needs to really think through a lot of their releases, because we need to see things that actually change the game and are meaningful and impactful to players. Which I think this is more, you know, along the lines of. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching to the end of the video. If you did enjoy it, like it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.